Today, we're diving into AMD's latest offerings in the GPU market. With the release of their new RDNA 4 series, AMD aims to shake up the competition and bring something fresh to the table. Let's explore what these new GPUs have to offer and see if they live up to the hype. Ever since NVIDIA launched the RTX 2000 series, AMD has struggled to compete in the high-end segment. Their budget and mid-range cards are excellent. I always recommend them, and people buy them. But in the high-end category, the situation hasn't been great, to be honest. Even though AMD's high-end cards offer solid raw performance for the price, the common mindset among gamers is that if they're paying a premium price, they don't just want raw performance. They want other features too. Strong ray tracing performance, good additional features, high-quality upscaling, and a card that works well for streaming and content creation. These demands are 100% valid. In the budget segment, people don't focus much on these extras because price to performance is the main priority. But in the high-end category, if I'm paying a premium price, I expect more than just good raw performance per dollar. Unfortunately, AMD's high-end cards have been lacking in these areas. However, with the launch of the new RDNA 4 GPUs, AMD promised to improve these aspects. So did they actually deliver on their promises? Today we're testing the RX 9070 XT, comparing it to the RTX 5070 Ti, and seeing how it stacks up. I'll spoil the conclusion for you right now. Yes, AMD has largely delivered on its promises. Just look at the FSR 4 results. With FSR 3 we had that weird ghosting issue, and the image wasn't clear, especially on performance mode. But with FSR 4 the image is clean, sharp, and most of the issues are gone. The results are even close to DLSS 4. How did they pull this off? How did they achieve such an insane leap? I don't know, but FSR 4 is amazing. I've only tested it in 2 games, Spider-Man and Ratchet and Clank. So I don't know how it performs in other titles, but it's likely to be just as good. Its only minor issue is that it currently supports only around 30 games, but if it starts with that many games and AMD continues to support it, FSR 4 could become a serious frame booster. Okay, let's not get too excited. What if I already have a 6000 or 7000 series card? How can I use FSR 4? How do I enable it? Unfortunately, high-quality upscaling techniques require specific hardware. Previous FSR versions worked on all GPUs because they were software-based, but FSR 4 relies on AI similar to DLSS, meaning it requires dedicated hardware. Right now, FSR 4 is exclusive to the RX 9000 series GPUs. So, the choice we have is either software-based upscaling that works on all GPUs, but doesn't deliver great results, or high-quality upscaling that requires specific hardware and is locked to certain cards. Unfortunately, that's the reality. Now what about ray tracing? Again, this card surprised me. Here's Cyberpunk 2077, one of the most demanding ray trace games optimized for NVIDIA. Running it at 4K RT Ultra with upscaling, the RX 9070 XT gets close to 60 FPS. Previously, running Cyberpunk at 4K with ray tracing on an AMD card was nearly impossible. Our only request is for AMD to add FSR 4 support to Cyberpunk because, unfortunately, the game still only supports the older FSR versions. NVIDIA still holds the edge in ray tracing, but the gap isn't huge. AMD has stated that the RX 9070 XT is about 10 to 12% slower than the RTX 5070 Ti in ray tracing. From my own testing, I can confirm it's about 11 to 12% slower. However, its ray tracing performance is on par with the RTX 4070 Ti Super, which is excellent. Now let's talk about a topic I always get asked about: streaming and encoding. In the past, I always recommended NVIDIA cards for streaming because AMD's encoders, especially H.264, were terrible. With the RX 7000 series, AMD introduced AV1 encoding, which was good, but right now, only YouTube supports AV1. If you want to stream on other platforms, you're stuck with H.264, which was previously awful on AMD cards. AMD promised to improve their encoder, and here are the results. Yes, the encoder has improved significantly, and can even compete with NVIDIA's NVENC in some cases. However, in complex scenes, NVIDIA's encoder still has a slight edge. But now, AMD's GPUs are actually viable for streaming, which is what matters. They don't provide the absolute best streaming quality, NVIDIA still leads in that area, but at least the image quality is no longer a blurry mess when using H.264. To summarize, the RX 9070 XT with its impressive technological advancements and a $600 price tag is one of the best 4K GPUs for the money. Yes, it's among the best value 4K GPUs, but focus on the word value, especially at $600 because pricing is a bit tricky. We'll discuss that in a bit. Now let's move on to the technical review and testing. Today, we're testing the ASUS Prime Edition. This is my first time trying a Prime Edition and I'll explain about. The card is fully matte black, so if you care about RGB lighting, check other versions. Everything else about this card is top-notch. 3 90mm fans with shrouds made of high-quality plastic, a thick metal backplate, which I personally love because it adds a premium feel, and a pass-through. The card requires 3 8-pin power connectors. We'll discuss power consumption and overclocking later, but I'll tell you now, overclocking isn't great. Speaking of which, it also has a dual BIOS switch with performance and quiet modes. All tests today were done using the performance BIOS. Now let's talk about pricing. Availability is hit or miss. I'm not sure if the supply is limited or if demand is just higher than usual. And regarding pricing, AMD is playing the same tricks as NVIDIA. The official MSRP is $600, but actual market prices are completely different. How am I supposed to evaluate a product when the manufacturer's price is one thing, but the retail price is something else entirely? At $600, the RX 9070 XT is an excellent deal, but at higher prices, I'm not so sure. You also need to factor in local taxes, which make pricing even harder to assess. That said, despite limited availability and inflated pricing, this card is still much cheaper than the RTX 5070 Ti, which is absurdly overpriced. So, even though the RX 9070 XT is overpriced, it's still a better deal than the 5070 Ti by a wide margin. Finally, I have a direct message for AMD and their partners. Please work on improving availability and pricing, especially in the Middle East. AMD GPUs are severely underrepresented in this region. Right now you have an excellent GPU, a solid architecture, and great technologies. Just work on availability and pricing and this card will sell like crazy. The days of paying a premium for an NVIDIA card just because of extra features are over. The competition between AMD and NVIDIA is now much closer. NVIDIA still holds the lead in certain areas like 3D applications, AMD's Blender performance isn't great, and NVIDIA's technology support in games is still stronger. But in terms of pure tech, AMD has closed the gap significantly, which is great to see. So, what's my recommendation for the RX 9070 XT? If you can get it at a reasonable price and significantly cheaper than the RTX 5070 Ti, it's an excellent choice for both 1440p and even 4K gaming. And that's it for today's video. I hope you found it informative and enjoyable. If you liked the content, make sure to like and subscribe.